Hello, everybody, and welcome to Masters Day, and of course, welcome to our session introducing the specialization of the Masters of International Relations in Global Political Economy. I am the coordinator of the specialization. My name is Jonathan London, and along with me is Karen, who is a current student in the program. And we're very happy to be here with you today to introduce you to the specialization and to help you determine whether or not it's a specialization that you will be interested in applying to. We are looking for passionate students. We have a great program, and I'll spend about 20 minutes or so providing an overview of the program. We'll then hear a bit from Karen. She'll relate some of her experiences as a student. And then we'll take some questions from you. There'll be plenty of time for questions. And so please do feel free to take advantage of this. Of course, we're living in difficult times. The pandemic has thrown everything into disarray, from the health of so many people to global supply chains, even to our family relations. And we are confronting a situation in which, well, it's beginning to be life back to normal, but over the last year or so, we've been in a situation in which, learning has confronted various kinds of challenges. But we're very much looking forward, and what we're observing is that, the world is really at a crucial point. And indeed, the pandemic has contributed to a lot of thinking, not only about our preparedness with respect to public health, but also what sort of world economy, what sort of world is desired. We are facing multiple sorts of paradoxes, and these really define our times. On the one hand, the world is characterized by unprecedented wealth, but yet there's pervasive insecurity, economic insecurity, social insecurity, health insecurity. In some respects, humanity has achieved a certain dominance over nature, but it has also destroyed nature, and we are facing a serious threat of widespread calamity. We live in an age of unprecedented choice, and yet we face all sorts of constraints as well. And we, are devoted as people who are interested in scholarship to understanding the world better, whether it be in the natural sciences, the social sciences, or the humanities, and yet we can't escape the fact that human life is characterized by profound uncertainty. And we've seen certainly a lot of turbulence in the context of the pandemic, and also the different kinds of responses and different levels of preparedness or unpreparedness across various countries. And so it's really been a difficult period. And as the pandemic spreads to countries where there are greater levels of vulnerability, everyone's hoping that folks can figure out a way to respond in a way that is effective. Well, this specialization in global political economy is concerned with providing you with a cutting-edge understanding of the world economy. The world economy is the subject of global political economy. And we want to understand the world economy not simply as a set of economic processes, but indeed as a set of social and political processes. We are committed to providing you with an understanding of the world economy that is very much trained on the social and political foundations of the world economy. Furthermore, we provide a multi or even transdisciplinary perspective that starts from the assumption and the belief that no academic discipline, including economics, is alone adequate for understanding the world economy. There's just simply too much complexity. And so our program very much embraces a multidisciplinary disciplinary perspective. We also want to be relevant. We're not interested in studying the world economy in the abstract, because that's not what matters. What we want to do is connect our explorations of the world economy to contemporary debates, contemporary policy issues, and to your lives. So, one way to think about the world economy is to think about, elites and interactions between elites. Now, you see a lot of the folks in the picture have left the stage of world politics. And at least with respect to one of them, I couldn't be happier about it. But what we see is that, of course, elites, still, this is a more recent photo just from the G20. And we have a situation here in which world leaders are confronting the pandemic. So you have these global elites appearing next to these medical and other staff, which is sort of an interesting juxtaposition. And also, of course, there's a lot of debate about the adequacy of the G20 and also the UN, initiative with respect to the climate, which is, of course, a pressing demand, particularly for your generation, assuming most of you in the audience today are in your early 20s, because it's, no secret that, for all of the world economy's impressive performance with respect to economic growth, it's been an utter disaster with respect to the environment. And indeed, humanity and the ecosystem is at threat. Well, not everybody is feeling threatened, but we are in a situation in which we need to understand the nature of the challenges that confront us. After all, the study of the world economy is not simply looking at such superficial questions, though important, as economic growth, but also what sort of world we want to live in. And the study of global political economy begins by asking us about the origins of the world economy that we confront today, its historical development, and its contemporary dynamics. After all, if you look at this image, what don't you see? You don't see borders. And that reminds us that the world economy is socially constructed. The geopolitical system is the product of human beings, as is the world economy that we inhabit. So one way of thinking about the world economy, and certainly a way that we foreground in our program, is to start with human beings and to ask, how are people doing in the world? And, you can answer that question by looking at photographs of children under different kinds of circumstances. And we see that, in the wealthiest parts of the world, children, far from all children, but larger shares of children have access to, a reasonably good kind of childhood with comfort, care, nurturance, protection, education, health, and rights, indeed. Even so, for example, in the United States, the country I come from, 20% of children live in poverty. If you go to other parts of the world, you see a lot of changes occurring. On the one hand, you see impressive rates of economic growth, industrialization, but also various kinds of challenges that confront middle-income countries. And then in many countries, of course, children live under very dire conditions as a normal feature of their routine social life. And it's just, it's really quite difficult. And so when we approach the world economy within our specialization, what we are trying to do is understand the world economy from a variety of different perspectives. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. The course that you'll begin your studies with, which I'll elaborate upon in a second, provides you with a thematic overview of the world economy. One of the things that we do in the specialization is to equip you with critical perspectives on central issues of our times. This does not mean perspectives from one particular theoretical tradition. After all, you can be critical and believe in just about anything, right? To be a critical thinker is to ask questions, to interrogate, to examine assumptions that underlie various kinds of arguments. So here's what you're studying. You will study the determinants of economic growth. Economic growth is very important because that, of course, determines the amount of value that is created, the amount of goods and services that are available for distribution. But growth isn't everything, of course. Poverty has to do with the extent to which human beings are deprived of their basic human needs. And inequality, which has always been a feature of social life, it's never going away, it's just as a part of life, sometimes is a non-issue and other times is something that people are concerned about. We'll also be looking at the changing organization of the world economy over time. Of course, the world economy in its current form traces back to about the 15th century. We're talking about a specifically capitalist form of economy that, had its origins in Europe, which is not to adopt a Eurocentric perspective, but just simply to recall that capitalism had its origins in Europe and then expanded through a process that included not only trade and things of this nature, of course, but also conquest, domination, exploitation. And then, more recently, you've seen quite interesting changes whereby a lot of parts of the world have experienced quite significant increases in their income. And overall, living standards have improved quite significantly, even as there's quite a lot of economic and social insecurity as well as inequality. Environmental sustainability and equity challenges are at the center of our analysis. We put them right there on the table from the beginning. We don't treat them as somehow secondary. And we're also very much concerned about the implications of the world market for rights and democracy. And in this context, what we're talking about are concerns that the contemporary world economy and the way it's managed, including the way the economy is structured by the United States, by European powers, by China and Russia, that the world economy has become, in many respects, unaccountable to democratic institutions. It was never particularly accountable, but a lot of people are feeling like there's a certain loss of control that has taken place, and many people are concerned about it, even as many people have very different ideas about what, if anything, can or should be done about it. We are also interested in addressing the challenges that lay before us. So one of the things that this requires is a clear understanding of the interests that are shaping the world economy. Who, for example, is promoting the kinds of rules and policies that prevail in the world economy? Who benefits? Who loses? Also, we're interested in exploring how features of the world economy register or are felt across a variety of different human endeavors. One example, for example, is routine social life in households. Okay, you think, hold on a second, what's the relationship between the world economy and what happens in my house? Well, one of the things that you learn when you adopt a political economy perspective that is sufficiently, sociological, is that the world of the market is actually supported by a lot of labor that is unpaid labor that takes place in households. And, we can think of that the household as a place where people are actually produced and nurtured and prepared for participation in the labor market. And so looking at the world economy entails not just an analysis of the economy as it is conventionally understood, but also how the world economy affects the livelihoods of people. So we can come back to that theme, if you like, later on in our discussion. But what we want to share with you is, and impress upon you, is that our program really takes this sort of holistic perspective, not in the sort of warm and fuzzy way, although warm and fuzzy can be nice, but that's not the point. This is about understanding the world economy as a social totality. The world economy and reality is not divided into academic departments. And that's the interesting thing about what's happening in higher education right now. After a century in which social scientists and scholars of the humanities divided themselves up into these disciplinary approaches, which certainly have their strengths, we are observing that you really need to bring to bear a variety of disciplinary perspectives to have an adequate grasp of the complexity that exists in the actually existing world. And so we look at politics and economy, civil society, and culture. And we also look at the world economy as it is experienced not by corporations and states, which are really important actors, of course, but also by workers, and civil society organizations, and so on. So what distinguishes our program from other master's programs within the University of Leiden and other places in Europe? Well, we are the first and only master's in global political economy in the Netherlands, and the first of its kind. We are distinguished by the multidisciplinarity of our approach, as I have just outlined. And we also pride ourselves on introducing you to a full range of theoretical traditions. This is something that is not the case, for example, in programs that address the world economy mainly from an economics or mainly from an international relations perspective. Although you will have exposure to international relations, scholarship and theory and methods, in the program, our focus on the world economy is very much embracing theoretical traditions in political economy per se. But political economy is a very dynamic field. There's a lot of interesting things going on. And one of the key ways in which this is seen is in the availability and indeed the importance of considering perspectives on the world economy from a variety of different geographical and societal standpoints. What does the world economy look like, for example, from Rwanda, a country that experienced a lot of violence, but now is led by a government that is trying to promote rapid industrialization along the lines that was achieved in parts of East Asia? What does the world economy look like from Brazil? What does it look like from Northeast Brazil, one of the poorest parts of that country, versus, the wealthiest areas of Sao Paulo or the slums of Rio or Sao Paulo? Okay, so the world economy looks different, right? And in our core course and in our program more generally, we want to invite you to develop an awareness of the importance of being able to view the economy from these different perspectives. Okay, so let me just give you a little example, or not an example, a sample of the kinds of courses that you will take. Because in addition to the core course, which will be led by myself and others of our staff, that will provide you with an overview of the historical development of the world economy, and also a thematic survey that explores such issues as productivity, financialization, democracy, labor, and so on, you can take some electives. So there are, for example, 4 electives that I'll point out to you. And there are many more. There's a list that's available to you. You can check out. But within the global political economy specialization, you will have priority in getting into the following elective: global labor studies, global social policy, a course that I'll be co-teaching with a scholar who is a Latin Americanist. Quite interesting course: global economy and the environment, as well as global capitalism and its alternatives. Again, as I said, there's a list of many electives that you can take, although you are limited in the number of electives you can take because it is a short program. If I had my choice, it would be a 2-year program. I don't know how you feel about that. But upon completion of our specialization, here's what we want you to have. We want you to have a set of transferable ideas and skills. So when you come through this program, when you pass the core course, when you complete your electives, when you complete your master's thesis, you're going to have a knowledge base and a set of ideas about how to think about the world economy, about how to learn about the world economy, about how to examine and explore the world economy that will be of value to you in a variety of settings. You want to be able to contribute to debates and analysis that will be taking place in the societies that you live and the organizations within which you will work and the pursuits in which you will be engaged. And we want, most of all, we want you to have an analysis of the world economy that produces value for you, for society, and we have no, doubts that our program is useful. Our students go into a broad array of different fields, and it's something that you can, not have to worry too much about. I mean, our students go into business and education and government, non-governmental organizations, you name it, okay? What distinguishes the students, who also come from different backgrounds, is that they have an unusually well-rounded and indeed, in some respects, cutting-edge way of looking at the world economy. So having said that, let me just talk a little bit about myself from the United States. I'm presently the only coordinator. I've been coordinating the program actually for 5 or 6 years. My PhD is in sociology, but a specialization in political economy, and I've done a lot of research on Asia, but because I'm interested in theory, I have a pretty good familiarity with the world. I'll just give you a very quick example of my scholarship. Here's a book. It's called Welfare and Inequality in Marketizing East Asia, and it's a comparison of how world-scale processes of marketization unfolded across 10 countries in East Asia and its effects with respect to well-being, social policy, and patterns of inequality. I've done a lot of work with international organizations, including, for example, UNICEF. And actually, I take, I really believe, and Karen can say something about this as well, that to be useful, you need not only sophistication, but you need to be able to understand complex ideas, but also to communicate ideas to different kinds of audiences. And my own view is that, higher education needs to be contributing much more, and master's degrees need to be more valuable in the world of work. And so, what we want to do is equip you with a way of looking at the world economy that is useful to you as you go forward in your pursuits. So that is my preliminary sort of overview of the course. Again, we are going to have questions and answers, but Karen, one of our current students, again, is with us. And I thought that one way of going about this, before Maud, who is hosting and facilitating the discussion, will take questions from you, is to just maybe ask Karen to share some of her experiences in the program. I might ask you, Karen, for example, to begin by maybe sharing with the students what led you to apply for the program, and maybe you can just speak in some generality about what your experiences have been.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan, for your very clear presentation. What led me to choose this program is first because from the humanities point of view, not only is it very holistic and broad and touches up on like various aspects of the real world that we're living in that you learn to understand during this program, but also because it's not necessary to have a background in international relations. So that was my perfect option. But from a more personal point of view, I had been living in various countries, and I did not really understand how the world became or has become what it has become. So I wanted to have more in-depth, more tools, more like weapons for myself to understand this world. And this program is really giving me that. And that much information is sometimes difficult to process. But it's about the real world. It's about people, and it's theories that help you see this world from so many different perspectives and opening your mind, not only academically, but also personally. Like afterwards, I read the newspaper, I'm like, I know. I started this. I know. So yeah.
So Karen, a lot of students remark that the program it's very demanding. There's quite a lot of reading, of course. The students in our program are self-selected, of course. They are in the program because they want to be, and the positive aspect of that is that all of our students are super motivated. But of course, that does present, there are natural challenges. A lot of work is hard. And so can you maybe tell us a little bit about sort of aspects of the program that you have found challenging, and, perhaps how you've managed to get through, and what you might suggest to the students about the sort of workload that they can expect and maybe how they can sort of think about it?
Yes. Expectation management, don't take it lightly. It is a tough program, and it is a one-year program, and I think that is one of the reasons why many students pick this program. But don't think it's just going to be 1 year and then it's over. I go with my paper, thank you, I enter labor market, happy me, happy everybody. That's not, it's a lot. And also because there might be a lot of new information that is coming to you, which you want to process it in order to write a good paper or form some certain kind of opinion or different opinions. And the challenge for me was that I think I had to start reading before entering the program, in order to have a more clear idea of all the options and all the aspects that are being spoken about during the program. And because it led to me having, for example, some difficulties focusing or being like, oh, I want to write my paper about this because this and this and this and this is all very important. It's all very new to me. I want to know about everything. I want to read all the books and I have no time to do it. So besides being very passionate and like knowing what you want to get out of this program, also think about already what kind of topics would you want to learn about, and already start reading some articles or books to have a clearer idea of even what you want to write your thesis about, because it might seem far away, your thesis, you start a program and then the thesis is at the end, but it's only 1 year. It's very fast.
Yeah, and I think, I'll just offer a few comments on this, and then perhaps we can then open it up for some Q&A, and you can ask questions both to Karen and myself. Is that with respect to the thesis and the program overall, I think it's useful for students to have some sort of sense of the kinds of concerns and indeed the kinds of problems that they want to explore. And what we find when we do a master's thesis, maybe some of you have done one somewhere else, but maybe it's new for most of you, is that what you're really trying to identify is some phenomenon or some set of phenomena that you want to know more about, okay, that you think are important, that you think are significant. And that's really the key. And so I think, if there are issues, you might not necessarily know that much about them at this point. But if there are issues that you're interested in exploring, then one good way to proceed as a student is finding out more about them. And then, once you get into the program, you sort of identify a set of issues that you really want to know more about, and you think, more needs to be known about. And indeed, the goal of the thesis is for you to be able to explore an issue or a problem and say something about it that is useful, that is potentially, a contribution to the field, and that will prepare you for, your career. And we have students doing very different kinds of projects. Karen can tell you a little bit about her project, and, I have students studying things in all different world regions, also at the level of Europe, at the global level. So you can really take it any way you like.